Good morning, everyone. Um, yes, so I'll just go straight to my slide. This is kind of the odd topic out of the NIRAC project, but yesterday I presented on the NIRAC, and today Aja requested me to present just a short talk on my PhD thesis, which I did like some years back, 2 years back. So, yeah. So I would like to start with a question like how many, by show of hands, agree that we, human beings, followed animals for food? How many, by show of hands, agree that we followed the trails left by humans for, yes, thank you, sir, to search for food and water? How many? Yes, yes. Thank you so much. So, yeah, the trail we followed became the path to settlements and then towns and cities and nations. And this indispensable relationship that we have with nature is reflected among the indigenous communities, and I will be talking about one of these aspects. And this presentation is an excerpt of my PhD thesis, and I don't know how 10 minutes is going to help me explain about my 4 years of PhD struggle, but I'll try to just, yeah, so among several objectives, one objective was to identify the biotic and abiotic indicators that the Sumi Nagas use to predict weather. And another objective was valorization of these indicators, that is validation. And I'm sure that all the bright minds here, some of you might agree to validating indigenous knowledge systems, while some of you might say that it's a disrespectful protocol. Because I'm saying this because I'm saying this according to the context of the Australians. So I had a cultural immersion for 3 months with Flinders University and Charles Darwin University in Australia, and I've been with the Aborigines for 3 months, and they say that valorization of their knowledge system is disrespectful. They say that we should just respect its authenticity, its distinctiveness, and we should not place valorization above the value of the indigenous knowledge system. So I will just talk about the indicators, and I will leave behind the valorization protocols. So let's look into the insects as indicators of weather prediction. The first one is the weaver ants. So whenever this weaver ants, before the rain, they would close the nest, the entrance of the nest, and then the indigenous communities, the Sumi Nagas, they look at the indicator and then they predict that a rainfall is about to start, or if the entrance of the nest is open, then they realize that it's going to be a fair weather. And these are the flying termites. So these flying termites are also an important indicator of weather prediction because these termites are called ellets. They come out of the soil after the rain, and then they say that after these ellets come out, there 2-3 days there wouldn't be any rain. And this is cicada. This is like very common for all the indigenous communities. They say the louder the cicada chirps, it's actually a mating call, but the louder the cicada chirps, the more heat, and then there'll be more rainfall. And this is the web of the spider. If the webs are thick, then they say that there's going to be adverse weather. That is like a storm or an impending rain. But if the webs are thin, then they say that there's a fair weather. And this is the wood borer larva. So they say that if this larva eats its way up from the bottom, then there's going to be a fair weather. But if it eats the wood from the top, then there's going to be rainfall. And let's look at the animals. They say that the relentless, nervous barking of dogs always predicts adverse weather conditions. And I've taken this animated because some of you might have a phobia of the snakes. So they say that when the snakes come out of the holes, they say that a slight tremor is expected. And you must all be knowing about the headbangers, the snakes in China, where they farm the snakes in China to predict earthquake. So when the snakes have this, they say that the scientific succor that I had about the snakes was, they say that they have ears even on the lower jaw, and then they feel the tremor before the earthquake starts. They feel the tectonic plates before the earthquake. And yeah, rodents as well. If they come out of the holes in large numbers, panicking, nervous, then there's prediction of a slight tremor. And yes, the frogs. Monsoon calling of the frogs. Yeah. And then the birds. These are the Amur falcons. So the migratory arrival of the Amur falcons foretells that the nights are going to be short, days are going to be shorter and nights are going to be lower. That means the cooler season is approaching, autumn and then winter. And this is the sowing cuckoo. In Sumi Nagas, we call it kashopapu. So whenever they hear the singing of the bird, they start the harvest. And there's a legend and a folklore attached to this. And this is the nest of the bird. If the nest of a bird situated near the river bank, you see, you can predict whether it's going to be heavy rainfall, like that is flooding, or there's going to be like normal rainfall. It's like the height of the bird, the height of the nest. If it's located a little lower, then it's expected that the weather will be, there will be no flooding. But if the nest is situated like at the crown of the head of the tree, then they predict that there might be excess rainfall and then there will be flooding. And plants as indicators of weather prediction. This Bambusa pallida in Nagaland, the gregarious flowering of this Bambusa pallida attract lots of rodents. And the rodents, after eating this, they start destroying the paddies and the agricultural fields of the Nagas, and that's how famine starts. And this is one of the diary of my respondent. I wouldn't mention her name, but in her she has said that she has not mentioned about Bambusa pallida, but she has mentioned that there is a famine looming on her neighboring village, and that's why they have started resorting to tubers, because rodents, they don't attack tuber plants. And this is pine cones. So when the scales of the pine cones are open, that means there will be fair weather. But when the pine cones, the scales of the pine cones are closed, then rainfall is expected. And the smell of the flower, the volatile compounds of the flowers, they say that it emits stronger smell before the rain. And immature and the dropping of the immature fruits is also indicator of a dry weather. That means rainfall will be limited. The Sumi communities also predict rainfall looking at the undersides of the leaves of the lime tree. They say that if the undersides of the trees are seen, then there's going to be more rainfall. And the biotic indicators of weather prediction. Yeah, a night full of stars is always, the grandparents would just look up to the star and then say that, tomorrow is going to be a good weather. But as a kid, we used to tell, how can they control weather? But this is also like a prediction for the Sumi Nagas. And a halo around the moon. The larger the halo, the more rainfall it is predicted. And red sky at night is a sailor's delight. And even not only the farmer's almanac talks about it, but the Sumi Nagas also look at the sky. If the sky is red, then they think that they can dry out the paddies in the courtyard and then go back to the field, because the next day, that day would not have rain and they wouldn't have to worried about the paddies being drenched. And this was interesting because I actually couldn't identify this, but we were like all sitting with the villagers, and then they say that even by looking at the way the smoke goes up during a fire, if it goes haphazardly, that means there's breeze, right? So there's breeze flowing, and then if it goes up like two-way haphazardly, then that means that there's an impending. When I say impending weather, it's like rainfall. Since agriculture in Nagaland is the main occupation, so rainfall, the agriculture is rain-fed, and most of the predictors are related to variability and the quantity of rainfall. And even the direction of wind. They've also said about the direction of wind. If the direction of the wind comes from the west, then the weather will be good. If it comes from the northeast or the east, then there will be rainfall. There will be no rainfall. And lastly, the inferences I want to share through this short talk is I documented about 79 indicators. However, 36 were not validated. And I don't want to use the word validated, but they were distinctive. However, the veracity of the 36 indicators for assisting them in their agricultural activities transcends the validation protocol. And the principal result was also the multiple ways of knowing, doing, and telling weather through the perspectives of the indigenous communities, whose sacrosanct relationship with nature also caters to our well-being and beyond. And taking cue from last evening talk by Madam Anungla, like the taboo. So that's, we call it proscriptions and anathemas, like the taboos. But so this resilience is inbuilt within the indigenous communities. So to maintain resilience in the face of change, we must draw in the best knowledge available, whether it is indigenous knowledge that is rooted in a millennia of time-tasted observations, trial and error, or whether it is scientific knowledge systems. Yeah, thank you for your attention. And this is just to share on a lighter note. Today's weather forecast, 100% sunshine by the radio, and it's raining. Yeah, thank you.